There have only been 8 British queens, and the first one came to the throne in 1553. She was Mary I, also known as Bloody Mary. England is one of the few places on Earth that has captured the hearts and imaginations of most of humanity. The island may be small, but English history is full of warriors, castles, intrigues, and scandals that still impact the world today. England has given the world some of the most recognizable figures, both fictional and real. But the monarchy is one of the most cherished traditions. Although the royal family has little legitimate political power today in running the government, they still serve as figureheads known the world over. There was a time, however, when the royal family had immense power over England. But England was not only led by kings. Some of England's best rulers were queens. Here are 4 remarkable queens who ruled England through challenging times and shaped it into the country it is today. Number 1. Queen Elizabeth I. Queen Elizabeth I was the second child of King Henry VIII. She was also the last monarch of the Tudor dynasty. Her mother was Anne Boleyn, Henry's second wife. Henry was desperate for a son and heir, but his first wife, Catherine of Aragon, only had one healthy baby, a little girl named Mary. However, the Catholic Church wouldn't allow Henry to annul his marriage with Catherine, so Henry broke away and started the Church of England. He formally married Anne Boleyn in 1533, and Elizabeth Tudor was born a little over 7 months later. Questions surrounded her birth about the true religion in England, and Elizabeth would have to wrestle with those questions all her life. She did not get to spend much time with her mother. Anne did not get pregnant again, and Henry VIII had her executed in 1536. He married 4 more times and fathered a son named Edward during his 3rd marriage. Edward inherited the throne after Henry VIII died, but he had always been sickly and soon died. Against his wishes, his older sister Mary took the throne as Mary I, and she tried to return England to Catholicism. She killed hundreds of Protestants for refusing to convert to Catholicism, which earned her the nickname Bloody Mary. Her reign only lasted 5 years. She died in 1558, having had no children. That left the way clear for Elizabeth to become queen in 1558, and she had to work hard to reconcile the tension between the Anglicans and the Catholics. She did return England to Anglicanism, but she also promised leniency for Catholics. Sadly, her reign did not balance the struggle between these 2 religious groups perfectly. Elizabeth also had to struggle for her right to rule. Many people urged her to take a husband, but the queen was concerned that a husband would usurp her powers. Although she begged patience from these people, promising to marry in time to have children, Queen Elizabeth I never married. Instead, she led England through its golden age, a significant part of which was developing the English Navy. Elizabeth's grandfather might have started the modern English Navy, but it became essential to the expanding British Empire under Elizabeth's rule. The English Navy proved itself in the Battle of the Spanish Armada. Spain was a great world power at the time, and their armada was considered unbeatable. King Philip sent his armada to attack England. Elizabeth sent her navy to defend her country, and the resulting upset led to England's rise as a world power. Although Queen Elizabeth I allowed some colonization in the New World, she was much more interested in India. Establishing England as the primary trade source for Indian tea and spices would build her country's economy. On December 31, 1600, Elizabeth granted a charter to establish the East India Company, which created a monopoly on English trade and started England on the path to a prosperous future. She is remembered for her strong leadership, economic thinking, and unmarried status. England would not be nearly as successful as it is today without the dedication of its Virgin Queen. Number 2. Queen Mary and her husband, William of Orange. Queen Mary was the eldest daughter of King James II, who came from the Stuart line. Unlike his older brother, James II was not a popular ruler, partially because he was a practicing Catholic. Unlike others before him, James II refused to convert to Anglicanism upon taking the throne, which made the people uneasy. At this point in English history, Catholicism was looked down upon and even feared. But the king wrote the Declaration of Indulgence to encourage religious tolerance by removing penalties for not following the Church of England. The English pushed back so violently that they eventually staged the Glorious Revolution, also known as the Bloodless Revolution. Mary was raised Anglican and married William of Orange, a Dutch prince, and her cousin in 1677. He was well liked, Protestant, and fourth in line for the English throne. That was enough for the anti-Catholic politicians planning to remove James II. James had fathered his son, so they could no longer hope that his rightful successor would return the country to Anglicanism alone. The English plotters exchanged letters with William of Orange for about a year before William decided to venture to England and gauge the situation. William of Orange landed in 1688 and slowly made his way to London. His invasion was not violent, and he was supported by many English, including the King's General, John Churchill. James II fled from England, and the English government decided this was akin to abdication. William and Mary were crowned King and Queen of England in 1689, and their rule was unique because they ruled co-jointly. The revolution occurred without a fight in England, which is why it was called the Glorious Revolution. Together, Mary and William returned the country to Protestantism. They also famously accepted the Bill of Rights from the English Parliament. The Bill of Rights limited the monarchy's power and excluded Catholics from the English line of succession. Parliament gained control over the royal budget, and the monarch was not allowed to have a standing army in times of peace without Parliament's consent. The bill was essential to developing the modern parliamentary system, and William and Mary insisted on taking the step together. It was rare for a country to have a joint monarchy like that, but it gave Queen Mary a remarkable amount of power. William led while he was at home, but Mary led while William was fighting in wars. His wars took him to Scotland, Ireland, and continental Europe, and Mary was the more popular monarch with the English people. Mary died in 1694 from smallpox, and William ruled alone until 1702, when he died after falling off his horse. The next monarch was also a remarkable queen, Mary's younger sister, Queen Anne. Number 3. Queen Anne. Queen Anne was also King James II's daughter, and she ruled after both Mary and William had passed. Her reign was strong, but her personal life was filled with tragedy. She married Prince George of Denmark on July 28, 1683. He was a dull fellow, but Anne appears to have truly loved him. Sadly, none of their 18 children survived to adulthood. Anne had many miscarriages and stillbirths, and only one of her children survived past infancy. William, Duke of Gloucester, was born on July 24, 1689, and he soon developed an interest in the military. However, he died from smallpox at 11 years old, leaving Anne without an heir. After King William III died, Anne was crowned queen as the last surviving member of the Stuart line. Many people believed she would not be an influential monarch because she was shy and soft-spoken. Still, she quickly proved her ability to speak in public and led her country through the transition into a parliamentary monarchy. Anne demonstrated herself to be a practical, hard-working, and popular queen. One of her significant accomplishments was uniting Great Britain. Technically, England and Scotland had had the same monarch since King James I succeeded to the English throne after Queen Elizabeth I. However, they were still two separate countries. It would take about 100 years before the countries united in 1707. The two countries began seriously considering uniting after William and Mary came to the throne. They were even popular with many Scottish, but the Scottish Presbyterians and English Parliament pushed back. However, soon afterward, Scotland fell into hard economic times called the Seven Ill Years. They had severe drought and weather that damaged crops so severely that there was a food shortage. People were starving to death because of extreme crop failures. Scotland also lost a lot of money attempting to colonize Panama. The Spanish were unwilling to share the Americas with other European nations. The Company of Scotland trading to Africa and the Indies was a failure. By 1702, Scotland was willing to negotiate to unite with England. Queen Anne supported their unification and encouraged the two parliaments to enter negotiations. The formal talks happened in 1706 in London. Scotland agreed to accept Queen Anne as their monarch, and England agreed to allow the Scottish access to English colonial markets and to make minimal changes to the Church of Scotland. The Act of Union was signed in 1707 with Queen Anne's support, and Great Britain began. It would go on to build one of the biggest empires in the modern world. Queen Anne took pride in her country and shaped it into the contemporary Britain we recognize today, making her reign genuinely remarkable. Number 4. Queen Victoria. Queen Victoria was another remarkable queen who led the United Kingdom through one of its most powerful and influential historical times. Still, when she was crowned queen, she was only 18 years old and appeared as if she would be ineffective. However, she had been well trained for the position and handled it well, leading Britain through the Industrial Revolution and into the modern age. In 1840, at the age of 20, she married Prince Albert of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, and they had 9 children together. While they were married, Prince Albert had a heavy hand in politics, but he died in 1861, leaving Queen Victoria to rule the British Empire alone. Although she entered a long period of mourning, she rose to the challenge and left her mark worldwide. Queen Victoria is most famous for leading Great Britain during the Victorian era. The Industrial Revolution took off, and Britain was the first to industrialize on a massive scale. It made Britain one of the most prosperous countries in Europe, and as the population increased rapidly, industrialization provided jobs for many people. The Victorian era was full of dichotomies. There were considerable advancements in medicine, science, and industry, but there was also a rise in interest in tradition and spiritualism. Some sources even say that Queen Victoria used a psychic medium to talk with her late husband. The discrepancy between the rich and poor grew sharply during this time. While the economy expanded, many factory workers struggled to provide for their families. However, the Victorian era still captures people's imaginations today, perhaps because it was a time of significant change. The Victorian era touched every part of British life, and Queen Victoria managed to steer her country through it all to become one of the most powerful empires in the world. Of course, Queen Victoria did more than lead her country through an economic upturn. She also helped incorporate India as a formal part of Great Britain. India had been connected to England since the 1600s through the East India Trading Company, but when the company dissolved in 1874, Prime Minister Lord Palmerston placed it under the British Crown instead. In 1876, Queen Victoria was crowned the Empress of India. The union created a more functional political structure, but the Indian people were still not allowed to hold higher political positions or sit on the major ruling council. Overall, Queen Victoria is remembered for her long reign that impacted much of Europe, paving the way for the modern world and setting up Britain as a great modern empire. She died in 1901 and is remembered as one of the most remarkable queens to ever rule Britain. We are still experiencing the results of her reign today. How would you like to get a deeper understanding of history, impress your friends, and predict the future more accurately based on past events? If this sounds like something you might be into, then check out the brand new Captivating History Book Club by clicking the first link in the description. To learn more about England, check out our book, History of England, a captivating guide to English history, starting from antiquity through the rule of the Anglo-Saxons, Vikings, Normans, and Tudors to the end of World War II. It's available as an ebook, paperback, and audiobook. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this.